Welcome to Stormwoods, the only woods I know of where you need an invitation to visit. The only woods I know of where somewhere there is always a storm raging. The only woods I know of where the deeper into the forest you go, the larger and stranger the trees and plants, the larger and stranger the animals, the smaller and smaller the path becomes. The only woods I know of where you need to follow these specific rules. No chainsaws or axes of any kind. Don't visit unless invited by a resident or by Hecate herself. Leave out offerings for the denizens of the woods. If you hear dogs barking, expect a visit from Hecate. Don't stray from the path unless you are a torchbearer or a keeper of the woods, just to name a few. And if Stormwoods ends up liking you, it will often ask you for a favor. Those favors are how I ended up spending time in Carpe Noctem, a town with rules of its own. Hello, my friend. Well, if you don't think that I am totally full of it by now, you can probably continue on this journey with me. 'Cause it's gotten weirder. It's gotten weirder. Maddie now lives in Stormwoods. She has her own little cottage, that apparently is perfect for her. Addison left and came back with everybody in the coven but Augustina, and they had her stuff. So, they brought all of her stuff in for her and made the place all cozy. They seem to be able to come and go in Stormwoods as they will. But Maddie had a very stern talking to them about not telling anybody where she was, not telling anybody that she was, and as far as they're concerned, telling people that they just dumped her stuff and took her pets to somebody who was willing to adopt them. Um, so haven't seen Maddie. Um, I know that she is walking about in the woods because my cat disappears, walks with somebody, and then comes back, unless the cat's walking with Hecate, which I'm not gonna rule out because that is a distinct possibility. But also, I will occasionally see Lantern Light leaving the path and heading towards her house, or leaving her house and heading towards the path. So she is walking around, but I'm giving her space. She knows that if she wants to spend any time with me, near us, going through Stormwoods together, she can. She knows that we are predominantly in the watchtower, keeping watch over everything. And what's really interesting is now we can actually see the parking lot from the watchtower. And before, that was pretty obscured by woods, but it's like the path widens and opens up now to where from the watchtower I can see the parking lot pretty clearly. When I'm down on the ground, the path doesn't seem any wider. So I am taking that as we're supposed to be keeping an eye on the parking lot, making sure there aren't people trying to come and go. Now, the part that's interesting is we have left Stormwoods twice to go into towns nearby, and both times we felt like we were followed. Um, One time it was a black sedan, and, you know, Eli and I will think we're being followed just out of sheer paranoia and take 2 or 3 different routes, decide to go to a different town last minute. turn on the spur of the moment. Once we know an area pretty well, we take different routes every time. Part of that is the ADD, and part of that is, Eli has a certain amount of paranoia. Um, so, he's read a lot of books on it's just a fetish paranoia, basically. And one of the things they tell you as a woman is to always take a different route home. So, he and I have kind of done that as habit. Well, this black sedan stuck with us everywhere we went. Everywhere we went. And it was pretty creepy. And, I would say vampires, but it was during the day, and I have been assured by Hecate, who would know, that vampires don't walk during the day. She did say, well, some of them have been known to walk during the day, but they were destroyed. So that didn't really inspire confidence. Hopefully, yeah, I'm going to trust that she knows that they were all destroyed, not worry about it too much. But Maddie basically has shared with Addison and everyone that, no, these are honest to goodness. We have fangs and we'll suck your blood vampires with mesmerism and, the whole 9 yards. Apparently can't see them in mirrors, etc., etc. They do show up on video though. So there was an ancient camera system set up, and Eli and I are, we have requisitioned money to upgrade that, gotten it, and we're just waiting for the equipment to arrive. But that way we can have cameras on several different angles of the parking lot, the approach to the parking lot, our house, Maddie's house, that sort of thing. Now, none of us think anyone will get as far as our house, but we're going to have the cameras up anyway, just to keep a better eye on things. And the watchtower does come with a place to watch all of the cameras that we're also upgrading, you know, from black and white to color, from bubble screens to flat screens, that kind of thing. So yeah, we uh we are upgrading all of that because the next time we left, we weren't even going anywhere specific. We were just going to a nearby town trying to find some place to eat. Occasionally you just get tired of cooking and being inside. So we did that and we were followed there, and a couple even went into the restaurant and sat nearby and, stared at us the entire time. At one point, I even walked up to them and I was like, "Can I help you with anything?" And they said, "Oh, no, I think you've helped yourself quite enough." And I'm like, "Cool. What the fuck does that supposed to mean?" Pardon my language, but what is that supposed to mean exactly? And they said, "You know exactly what we mean." I'm like, "No, I really don't. And I don't know why you're following us, but I need you to stop doing it." And they basically looked at me and just kept staring. So Eli and I got our stuff to go and we left. And it took pretty much everything I had in me to not take my pocket knife and flatten their tire before we went. But, in these days of Big Brother where there are cameras everywhere, I don't want to have to go to court about giving somebody a flat tire because they were staring at me. One of the things about facial expressions and staring is we all know what it means. We all know that somebody can bully you just with their facial expression, but nobody takes it seriously because what do you care if they're staring at you? It's like, well, when the stare has weight and, kind of an ominous feel to it, it's a bit much. I did have my wards, I had the evil eye charm and a couple other things on me, so whatever they were throwing at me was bouncing right back, but that didn't seem to phase them too much. I think I may have to upgrade some of my protective jewelry to, instead of just be protection, be baneful protection, where if you're throwing stuff at me, it throws right back, you know? Um, but, I don't like to do baneful magic as a general rule, but baneful wards are pretty much you come for trouble, trouble finds you. So I feel like those are justifiable baneful actions. And, you know, regardless, it was weird. It was very weird. So, getting back home, uh, one night, we had forgotten to check the mail. And so I went to the mailbox and I got the mail. And then I noticed at the edge of the parking lot was that black sedan. And there was somebody standing right next to it. Now, one of the things that Kate pointed out to all of us last week when we got Maddie was the exact parameters of the property lines. Like, I know that the parking lot is considered to be Storm Woods. Just outside the parking lot, there's almost like there's like a little creek, so you have to drive over. It's not even a bridge. It's more like there's a road with a hole underneath. I have no idea what those are called. I'm sure there's something specific they're called, but like those little tubes that go under so the creek can keep running through and things don't get clogged. Well, that is the border. So I walked over and stood well on my side in Storm Woods, and the other side was one of the vampires. And the vampire said, "You have property of mine." And I said, "Well, that can't be right. I don't have anyone's property." I said, "Property happen to be things. People aren't things." And the vampire said, "Actually, you're wrong about that. People are things, and she is our property." And I said, "She isn't, and you can't have her. And property doesn't have free will. She has free will, and she doesn't want to be with you. And slavery went out of vogue years and years ago. I mean, not if you're looking at the US prison system, but that's a different kettle of fish than what we're doing now." And the vampire told me, "You need to be careful. Anytime you leave, you will be watched." And I said, "Yeah, I'd picked up on that when you had your two people following us. Kind of amateurs, aren't they?" And here's the thing, my words were bold because I was furious. Like, just absolutely, like, how dare they act like I have stolen something when they took a person, they took a human being and treated that human being like an object. How dare they? And it was one of those where there was fear in there, but the fear was buried under so much blind rage that I just couldn't even. And I'm having a hard time telling this story without dropping F-bombs every other word because I'm still so mad. I'm still so furious about it. Like, "Oh, you're a vampire, so you think you're top of the food chain, so you think that you can get away with whatever because you've gotten away with whatever, but you're not going to keep getting away with whatever because I'm here now and I see what you're doing and I'm not going to let you keep doing it. Certainly not to my witches, certainly not to my people." Like, for the love of all that's holy, there are people out there who would gladly sign up to be vampire slaves. There just are. There's entire vampire wannabe culture where they would be slaves if they could be promised to be turned into a vampire eventually. That's apparently where Augustina Gully fits in. She is a vampire girl wannabe, and she fit in with the coven because she was very goth, very witchy, very into several different subcultures that fit with their interests. And she wants more than anything else to be turned into a vampire. So she does whatever they want her to do, including offering up Maddie on a silver platter. But they don't want the willing. They want to take the unwilling and force them to do their bidding. There's some sort of power and control enjoyment they get out of it, some sort of sick pleasure they get from power over instead of cooperation. And I don't understand the mindset, but I don't drink blood to stay alive, so I'm probably not going to get the mindset. And, anyway, so this vampire says to me, "You're going to have to leave Stormwoods eventually." And I said, "Probably, probably." And, I hope when I leave Stormwoods, it's not to find out where you sleep during the day. Which, bold words, like, we just kidnapped a chick in it was the easiest thing ever, like, I'm gonna go hunting vampires, but he didn't know this, so, might as well do false bravado if we're just standing there, 'cause, like, I mean, come on, I I don't even know how to fight. I've never been in a fight, like, anyway, but I pretended I was Billy Badass here instead of quaking in my boots because the fury would not let me back down. And when you are angry enough, that anger makes you feel powerful, even when you're like really not. And I was really not a powerful person. All I had was this barrier, and I was trusting Hecate that Stormwoods is her house and that vampires can't cross the threshold into her house. And so I think that proved true because I think if this vampire could have killed me, he would have. Um, like, it is probably not a surprise if vampires are real that they can do this, but like his eyes were glowing red. He was so angry at one point. Like, this very much felt like he felt justified in his anger, which just pissed me off more because somebody you kidnapped broke free and you're acting like the injured party? Are you serious right now? Are you for real? Oh my God, you have to be kidding me. This has to be a joke. This has to be an absolute joke, right? And apparently it was not a joke. Apparently this vampire was dead serious. And I didn't even get his name. I did not even get this vampire's name. And I said to him, I was like, well, I probably will have to leave sometime. Yeah. And I really hope that anybody that follows me is as invulnerable as you are, because I would hate to have to injure them to get them to stop following me. And the vampire kind of smirked, but like Eli has a concealed carry. We're in rural Illinois. We're in a wooded area. And while part of the rules of Stormwoods is you don't shoot anything in Stormwoods, that doesn't mean Eli's going to give up on having the concealed carry. Like, just because he's a flaming liberal doesn't mean that he doesn't know how to shoot. I mean, I told you about the time that pack of wild dogs attacked his parents' livestock, and without weaponry to scare off the wild dogs, they would have lost several goats. That's why they eventually got donkeys, because donkeys will kick the crap out of coyotes and wild dogs and other predators, and they got the donkeys to protect the goats. So anyway, us not having weapons on us isn't really a thing. I always have mace, which probably isn't going to do crap to a vampire, but might do something to a human. And as we're clearly never going outside during dark again, or at least not outside out of Storm Woods, we're not going to tempt fate on that level. But it does make life a little bit more difficult because, now I don't want to leave Storm Woods at all. I don't want to. I really kind of wish there was a grocery store somewhere in Storm Woods. But my garden plans have certainly expanded. And so that's something that I've chatted with Maddie about, one of the things, and via text message, because she very much wants to be left alone. She really doesn't want people around her. Like, she's tolerating her friends, but even though Eli and I grabbed her and brought her back home, I mean, fundamentally, we're just a second set of kidnappers to her. It's going to take her a while to warm up to us because, you know, we're just another set of people who circumvented her free will. Now, granted, it wasn't her free will, it was her mind-controlled will, but I'm not going to throw stones at someone being psychologically damaged from being kidnapped, not necessarily wanting to hang out with her second set of kidnappers, even if they were trying to rescue her, you know? Like, Hecate says that one of her horde is a counselor. Hopefully, that's something she can work through with that counselor because it would be nice to be friends with her, but it's not something I am anticipating happening. Anyway, so, threats made. The vampire threatened me. I threatened the vampire. And the vampire seemed very, very intent on continuing the conversation. And one of the things that the vampire was trying to do was trying to get me to make eye contact. And honestly, again, anger overriding self-preservation, I made eye contact several times. And at one point, I could feel him trying to use the eye contact to pull me over the threshold. And I laughed. And I have no idea why it didn't work. My best guess is being in Storm Woods offers me protection. If it is Hekate's home and the vampires cannot enter anywhere in Storm Woods because it's Hekate's home and they aren't invited, I'm guessing there is some protection offered by being in a place that's considered a sanctuary. That's my best guess. But, you know, once I went home and was talking everything through with Eli, um, I felt pretty stupid doing that because if I didn't have that protection, if that wasn't something that was happening, I could have easily been forced to invite him in. And here's the thing, I don't know if me inviting somebody into Stormwoods matters. I'm not the owner of Stormwoods. I am the keeper of Stormwoods, the watcher of it. My home in Stormwoods is mine for as long as I'm living in it. That has been guaranteed by all of the agreements we signed when we took the job, as well as what Hecate herself has said. But that doesn't necessarily make all of Stormwoods mine. Now, I'll be real honest, I consider all of Stormwoods mine. It is very much my territory. It is very much land I love and that I feel very protective over, that I have put up wards and all kinds of magic around, both as offerings to the land, the beast, the spirits of the land, to Stormwoods itself and Hecate, but I have done so much in the little time we've been here to embed myself into this area that it very much feels like my home. So, if they could have trapped me with their eyes and done mind control, I might have invited them in. But since that mesmerism didn't work, and, I wish this is where I kind of wish I could talk to Maddie and find out more about how the vampire magic works. That's something that I would very much like to know. So anyway, um, at this point, after the vampire tried to do that a couple of times, I laughed and said, "Are you going to give up and go away yet, or are we going to keep playing this game?" It actually screamed, and I say it because when it screamed, it was an inhuman sound. It was not, it was all pretense of passing for human was gone. The jaw dropped larger than a human jaw can drop. Very much like, you know how snakes unhinge their jaws to eat things? Like to wrap around something bigger than their mouths? That is how it was. It was pure rage coming out that I felt like a physical blow, like the scream hit me and I took a couple steps back. And here's the thing. the scream started, and I feel like Eli just manifested right next to me, somehow. You know, I found out later I had been gone too long, so he came looking for me and was just arriving at the parking lot when the scream started. But to me, it was like 1 second he was there and 1 second he wasn't, because the entire appearance of the vampire went from something passing as human to that almost translucent skin where you can see the veins underneath, like so pale it's almost clear. Um, an unhinged jaw, a scream that I'm surprised my eardrums didn't burst. It was so loud. So Eli grabbed me and left. And it was one of those where I was not even aware that I was leaving, until we were back home, because I was just stunned, you know. I'm trading threats with a predator that's probably been alive longer than America has existed, you know. It had just this ancient feel to it once it dropped its human guise, you know. And I think that's part of the problem. You know, this is somebody who seemed to have been raised at a time where slaves were a divine right as opposed to an abomination, or at least that's the mindset that came at me with the scream, because that scream was full of emotion, and it was full of rage, and it was full of, and I know this is so weird to say, it was full of entitlement, you know, like it had every reason to throw its fury at me, and the only way it could reach me was by this scream. And it did hit me as kind of a physical blow, but you know, then Eli and I were beaten feet back to our house. So anyway, many local places will deliver groceries to our driveway, um, to our very house, but you know, Eli and I both wonder if they'd actually make it to the house. So, um, since we figure like FedEx, UPS, and mail trucks make it to the mailbox, we have tried out a couple grocery stores that will deliver to the mailboxes and picked it up there. And you know, one of the nice things about being deeply introverted people is Eli and I spent all of our socialization going to Carpe Noctem, going to clubs, going to all of those places to find Maddie, and both of us, in discussing it, perfectly fine never leaving Stormwoods again. At least right now. At least right now. Now, there's a certain part of my brain that realizes that that is not a sustainable model for the future. But, you know, in the days of internet and Wi-Fi, I can video conference anybody I want to see in person. You know, when we moved, we knew that it would be a while before we were able to visit, because the window of opportunity for us both to leave is pretty small, you know? So we figured we wouldn't be traveling very much. We'd invite people to come stay with us, or we would talk to them on the phone, or, you know, we would do what we did in times of COVID, where we just spend a lot of time video conferencing. Um, and I say video conferencing because seriously, everybody I know uses a different platform. So I just, video conference is easier than saying a brand name or a platform, because I have all of the apps, because literally everybody I know uses a different communication form. Like the messaging apps I have on my phone, all of them, all of them. Whereas I'm over here going, can't we just text? Can't we just stay in the land of text? But anyway, at some point we will need to leave, and that will need to be something we do very, very carefully. And if I do have friends or family here, I am going to stress the importance of traveling during the day only. When they get here, like clearly we have a guest room. Oh God, the guest room. So Addison went back home. that door to the guest room disappeared. It isn't there anymore. It's gone. So apparently, like many things in Storm Woods, our house changes to fit our needs, which is interesting. I'm beginning to think that Storm Woods might be in a pocket dimension that belongs to Hecate. Like she's liminal spaces, right? So Storm Woods itself is a liminal space. Because every time I get a little bit deeper into Storm Woods, things become a little bit less recognizable. Trees have leaves that I've never seen before. Instead of it being mostly ferns as the undergrowth, there are plants that aren't recognizable to me or my plant ID or on my phone. Um, so I'm beginning to think I'm in a pocket dimension when I'm in Stormwoods, which might be part of why Hecate has such control over it. But yeah, the whole place is just magic like I've never actually experienced in real life. You know, most magic we do as witches is we do spell work and it works in a mundane fashion, you know, like you do a spell for money to come in and you sell the car that you've been trying to sell for months, or you get a couple new clients, or you get a pay raise at work. You know, it's usually something in the mundane world that could have happened anyway. You know, it's one of those to where is it magic or is this coincidence? Now, as a witch, don't believe in coincidence, always believe it's magic. But having a door appear and disappear is a very definitive sign of magic. Going for a walk in the woods and having the landscape no longer look earthly, not like it looks like you're on an alien world, it just looks like you're not on Earth anymore. And I know that sounds weird, but things look similar to Earth, but not quite right. You know, like oak leaves have a certain shape, but imagine an oak leaf that was like tripled, you know, like think of a or a three-leaf clover, only that's how the oak leaves are. That's not really something of Earth, but it's not completely foreign either. I'm not explaining it well, but the leaves look different. The plants look different. That's very definitively you're in a magical place, or at least, you know, hey Toto, I don't think we're in Kansas anymore. So yeah, I Eli and I both are kind of the opinion that we have had enough excitement for a while, and what we want to do now is we want to do our job, and we want to write our stories, and we want to stay in Storm Woods and not go anywhere. And, you know, that's what we're going to do. That is what we're going to do for the foreseeable future. And, you know, one of the things I've said to Eli is, well, what are we going to do on holidays? What are we going to do in that? And he's like, well, travel during the day. Once we get to a destination, we don't leave the homes of whoever we're at. But, you know, like with my family, they'll invite a stranger in on Christmas, like, "Oh, hey, you know Gabe? Yeah, come on in," without even thinking about it. And like, there's no way to tell my family, "Hey, there are vampires, please quit inviting strangers inside." They'll lock me up. They'll put me in a padded cell. Like, that's not a joke or hyperbole. They'll be like, "Oh no, she's finally gone over the edge. We gotta save her." And they will have the best wishes or the best intentions rather ever, but anyway. And all of that I am just freaking out about to Eli, and Eli's like, "Is that a problem we have to worry about today?" And I said, "No." "Is that a problem we have to worry about within the next 3 months?" And I said, "No." It's like, "Okay. Well, then we're gonna take that problem, we're gonna put it on a shelf, and what we're going to do is we are gonna focus on what we can control, what we can do, and what we need to do to survive." And that is, we work the job we were hired to work. We do the writing that we took the job to do, and we go for walks in the woods. And that's it. That's it. We have internet connection. We don't need anything else. That was the beauty of taking this position in the first place, is we wouldn't have to really leave other than to get supplies, and we can have supplies delivered to us just fine without a problem. Addison has also offered to bring us stuff if we need. I did fill her in because, I think she might be in danger too. And she says that she hasn't seen anybody following her. Um, I think the disinformation that they are feeding Augustina is keeping Addison safe because they've even made a few more trips into Carpe Noctem to look for Maddie now that Maddie is safely ensconced in Storm Woods, just to throw Augustina off the track. Like there was some discussion of just completely and totally ditching her as a friend, ghosting her, but they decided that it would be better to stay friends with her and treat her like a mushroom. Keep her in the dark, feed her a bunch of crap. So that's what they're doing, and it seems to be working so far to keep them fairly protected. Now, probably I'm a little surprised that, the vampires didn't realize it was Addison's vehicle we took, but, I don't know if they have that kind of connection. She was in the driver's seat, she has tinted windows. They didn't necessarily see that. I don't know if there was a camera anywhere around, but it was very obvious that we dropped a note to Maddie, so maybe that's why Maddie's disappearance is linked back to us and they're following us. But we aren't going to Carpe Noctem anymore. Um, and Addison and the Coven has still decided, a couple times a week they're going to go, and then they're going to just give up on trying to find Maddie. And, clearly she must not be there. And, let Augustina know and see how things go. So I am hoping that as we go into summer, that June, July, August are a lot less exciting than May. You know, um, this May was very exciting, and you know me, I don't like an exciting life. I like a boring life. I like a life with books and writing and cats and whatever hobby I'm entertaining at the moment. And, whatever show we're streaming, I want boring back. And so Eli is basically saying what we will do is we will have a boring summer. And a lot of times when Eli says, okay, we're just going to maintain, solutions present themselves. And that's not saying do nothing, the solution will come up. But a lot of times when we do nothing and give our brain time to rest and process, and let me tell you, there's a lot to process here. Like my entire reality has been turned upside down. And, I always felt like I was somebody who didn't disbelieve anything, who always kind of had belief of anything's possible. And I did not realize it until all of this. But no, I was very mired in the real world, and the reality is this, and this is how reality works, and this is magic, and this is how magic works. And yeah, vampires might be real, but vampires aren't really real. And I'm having to kind of readjust to what reality actually is, at least here living in Storm Woods close to Carpe Noctem. So the other thing is, I have a feeling that Hecate has more in store for us, you know, um, so we shall see. I am hoping that this is my last little jaunt into the realm of vampires, and that Maddie will stay here and heal, and that we can be friendly even if we're never friends. Although, you know me, I'm hoping for friendship. It would be nice to have somebody who lived close by that I could just, hey, you want to go for a walk in the woods? And then we go for a walk in the woods. Hey, you want to leave out an offering for Akate? And we leave out an offering for Akate, that kind of thing. But, right now I'm doing it on my own. And poor Eli, you know, He's Christian. He's having to realign some stuff too. He met a goddess, and he never didn't believe in goddesses and gods. He believed that they existed. It's just Jesus is his, and Jesus is very much, you know, you don't have other gods other than me, and Eli subscribes to that. So, like, he's cool with Hecate, but that's not who he works with, is how I would put it. But, like, he's having to readjust stuff too. Like, there's a certain amount of, "You mean Jesus could be talking to me this entire time and has chosen not to? What the heck?" You know? So there's a little bit of that I think he means in a tongue-in-cheek way, but, we're both having to readjust our perception of reality, and we both have been so focused on getting Maddie back, and neither of us are exactly sure why. Like, putting ourselves out there, going out on a limb to get this woman, none of that is who we are as people. Like I said, we're very much, we stay at home, and boy, it's a shame, and somehow we have been thrown into the thick of things. I wonder what all taking this job uh, is going to entail as far as our future. But one of the things about being present and being mindful is you can only live in the now. You cannot live in the past. You cannot control the future. You can only deal with what is right in front of you right now. So that's what we're going to do. And in that vein, I am going to send you this message, and then I'm going to go for my shift in the watchtower, and I am going to continue writing the book that I have been trying to write since we got here. And I am hoping that I'm able to get that done within the next month or so and get a follow-up book to that book in the next couple months. Because if I can just focus on writing and watching the woods, I will be able to make progress on the things I came here to make progress on. So that is what I am going to focus on. And hopefully things will go smoothly while I focus on that. But man, I'm filled with anxiety about the future. And I'm just trying to be like, all right, let the future take care of itself. I cannot do anything about that at this moment, and I need time to process. So anyway, that is where we are. But I have woken up a few nights screaming, thinking of when, like the vampire scream, I have dreams about it. And I wake up screaming, and I'm screaming to drown out the sound of that scream. And I don't like it. I don't like it. So, yeah. But anyway, I hope that you are doing well, and that you don't think I've completely lost my mind. Anyway, if anything exciting happens as we're trying to create a new normal, I will let you know.